Good morning. Thanks so much for the time. I'd like to thank Alma for the invitation to come and present our epic journey to you. They've been a great deal of help and indeed integral in the creation of the business. I'll take you back just briefly. I got approached by some friends of mine who were at Sericon Consulting to have a look at a business plan that the United Egg farmers were contemplating for the equipment that they'd purchased down in Airdrie in a plant. And they wanted to open up a breaking plant. So for those of you who aren't familiar with this process, about 30% of all eggs that are laid aren't suitable for the table market, and typically they get put into the liquid production. So what we do in a breaking plant is we bring the eggs in, we wash them, we break them, and pasteurize that liquid and sell it as either whole eggs pasteurized or yolk pasteurized or albumin or whites pasteurized. And traditionally, it was a model where you put through as much volume as you could. Egg was an egg, liquid egg was a liquid egg, and you were in the commodity business. And that was essentially what the original business plan was sort of describing. And I think my comments at the time was, listen, guys, light your money on fire. It'll warm the room for a while, and you'll save yourself a lot of grief because this is not where you want to go. The commodity business is one that I've worked really hard to not be in after my experiences at Maple Leaf. It's a terrible place. The product you have is growing older. It's growing less valuable as time goes on. The guys you're trying to sell it to know that. So the longer they wait, the less they pay. And it is a very good place to get your fingers pinched. It is a place to be if you're the deepest pockets in the industry because you can sort of dictate the price and manage it that way. But we were going to be the third smallest breaking plant in the prairies. And we didn't want to be there. The other plants are in Abbotsford. So what happens today, or what has been happening up until just very recently, is that the eggs that weren't table quality in Alberta, 30% of the flock's production, were shipped to either Abbotsford or Winnipeg, turned into liquid, and then shipped back into Alberta for people who used them here to process. So, we thought there was an opportunity in there to be in that business and to look at it from a different standpoint. And one of the things that we looked at, or what I looked at, were the assets. So the United Egg farmers are the quota holders of the population of birds in the province, and they have an average flock size of about 12,500. They're very well organized. They contribute money to research. They're interested in growing the industry, but they were really unsure of how to commercialize their product and go forward. And one of the things we looked at was, okay, let's look at the current situation and what it's like. Where else can we go? And so I started to do some research on the U.S. egg industry and found myself in Seymour, Indiana, in a barn that contained 3 million birds and a breaking plant and a grading station in the center of this massive barn. And all I'm thinking of is, boy, we've only got 1.8 million birds in the whole province, so this is clearly not the model for us. We can't compete on this level. Another place that this is not going to work at. One of the things that we could provide, though, with this small barn size was a closed loop. And so I started to speculate on whether or not we could actually go to customers who were looking for ingredients or for a finished product, and they wanted to be able to identify where the product came from. And the size of the barns in Alberta makes it sort of logical that you could find and put together 4 or 5 production practices over 4 or 5 barns, 4 or 5 farms, and supply all of that egg to a single user so he could then make a claim that he knew where his source of supply came from. He knew what the value of that product was. And we started to think that that was an opportunity for us. We also started to look at cage-free, enriched cages and versus conventional cages. And also what you can do to the birds that are inside those birds, where you can raise them in an organic function, where you can use an enriched feed, you can produce fertilized eggs. There's also a process we looked at where they can now, and it is in the market in Canada, pasteurize eggs right in the shell. So you run the eggs through a series of warm water baths, and out the other end you put them back in boxes, you put them back in shipping containers, and they are pasteurized. So they require less refrigeration. They've reduced the pathogens that sometimes occur in eggs naturally and produce a safer product for people with compromised immune systems or along those lines. And we met with folks in the United States that were doing that, and what they discovered was they started this thinking they'd be supplying old folks' homes and hospitals with sort of a safer product of eggs that they could produce, crack, and turn into whatever it was they wanted. And what they found out was that who really wanted that was the food service providers. Anybody cooking breakfast and having 16-year-olds make the breakfast for people were thinking, oh yeah, pasteurized eggs would be a great idea. you know, kind of thing. Hey, this is, you know, like this could really work for us, right? You got your 16-year-olds, they start throwing eggs in the back of a restaurant, because I actually worked in one as a kid and threw a couple myself. And you don't know where that egg splatter went to, and if it's in the salad and it's not pasteurized, now you got a problem. So this is a big benefit for organizations like Jack in the Box, and that business has been growing and going forward. So these were all things that we sort of started to look at and think like, okay, here are some things that we could look at from a business plan standpoint. Let's see if we can find a customer that would actually, you know, put their money where their mouth was and contribute to the development of a business plan and contribute by a contract to the development of a business. And we were incredibly lucky to run into Champion Pet Foods. Frank and his team expressed the desire to, you know, procure product out of Alberta as one of their critical pieces, and further that they were very interested in cage-free production, that they would like to be able to tell their pet food owners, these people that Frank described as being passionate about pets, as being able to feed them product that was produced by chickens that were being treated as well as those pet owners might want them to be treated. So there was an opportunity there. And so we really kind of got to know the folks at Champion, and I will tell you that they have been an unbelievable customer to date. They have been incredibly patient. We've had delays in our getting to market. We've had delays in getting egg supply at this point in time, and they continue to be patient with us. But more than that, Frank reached out to me personally and started to help me create what he saw as the 5 fundamentals and the critical pieces for a business to put together, and help me find consultants who could come in and help us create that system. And so really became an integral partner in our business, and is able to provide us with some guidance and some leadership, and we can count on them to allow us to grow with them. So it was a critical piece in the development of the business plan. And then we started to look at the diversity of product lines and alliances, because one of the things that these small barns lend themselves to is the ability to isolate flocks and treat them in a specific way to produce a very particular product. And I'll tell you, I had no idea coming into this business that eggs were such a variable medium, because I have heard some of the strangest business plans and some of the strangest ideas you could ever imagine from people who said, I want to do this with an egg, and can you help me? And we have a group that we're going to go forward with, and what they require are, let me see if I get this straight. They need a certain type of chicken to be inseminated, and those eggs to be incubated for just 2 days, and then pulled out, broken, pasteurized, and then powdered. And they are using it to produce a product that will reduce muscle loss in men between 40 and 70. So for all of us who want to be as vital and strong when we're 70 as we were when we're 40, and I'm already about 12 years behind that curve, so I hope it builds muscle mass as well as just prevents the loss of it. But just an interesting idea. And they have this product in GNC now for bodybuilders and those who want to use it, but they've also discovered this efficacy if it's taken in a more long-term plan, that this is the development. So, you know, I have a breaking plant, I have access to barns, this meets my business plan. This could be something that we're going to do, and we're going forward with that. Met with some folks from the Netherlands 2 weeks ago, and they have a product. If you feed a particular protein to birds and you harvest that, you don't have to impregnate those ones, that was the good news. We just take the eggs and take the yolk out, powder the yolk, they reconstitute it with water and serve it as or liquid actually, and serve it as a beverage. And it has efficacy on the prevention of macular degeneration. And they're taking that product into the US marketplace shortly. They're already in Europe with it. And so there's all these sort of niches that we're able to say yes, because when they go to the US, you can't get that out of a barn that has 3 million birds in it. You know, there isn't the opportunity to say, yeah, we can experiment with you. Where we align is that we've got these small barns and we can isolate this production and help you grow this business. So that is sort of the marketplace that we're hoping to build on. Of course, we've worked with the folks who've got the information over here regarding the creation of batteries and using egg membranes as a battery source. And one of the things that we've purchased is a process that will allow us to also produce eggshell powder and eggshell membrane. And so there's other sort of opportunities inside that come along, because we would have to pay to landfill eggshells, as most breaking plants do. But now we have a source and a product that we can take forward. The business continues to sort of diversify and look at all sorts of different production discussions. We got a call or a document a few weeks ago that people are looking for eggshells to use in cinder block construction. And it just kind of goes on and on and on, all these things you can do with an egg. So that's what we're working through and working on. So with that, Bruce Smith has been a tremendous value to our process. Working with me, I was creating the budgets and he was working with the engineering groups to create the actual plant. And we have a beautiful plant down in Lethbridge now. We have a video of it later, but it is a beautiful facility and we're really proud of it. And looking forward to getting it up and going full tilt. We have our grand opening on the 25th next week, so if you're in Lethbridge, please come by. We're going to have some tours starting around 10:30 and a few speakers, and we're going to serve lunch. Our owners are predominantly Hutterite farmers, so there's never a day goes by that we don't have lunch at 11:30. So please come join us. It'll be good, I promise. But Bruce is going to take you through the anatomy of an egg and what we've decided to do with the eggs that we're processing, and I'll be back in a moment. So Bruce.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Well, we'll start with kind of the anatomy of an egg, and you know, I'm an engineer, and a lot of people see me as an engineer, but I'm one who really truly believes that when you look at the food business, there's a couple of things you got to consider. There's the actual business plan, which was Bruce kind of discussed, but then you have to take that business plan and translate it into what I consider what I call the technical business plan, which is what are you going to put on the plant floor? How are you going to get what you need out of the plant floor? So you start with the anatomy of an egg. So when you look at the structure of an egg, you obviously everybody's broken eggs, and to be honest with you, you break eggs just like you break them on your kitchen counter. Well, not dropping them, but with a knife. So basically what you've got is you've got a yolk, you've got the albumin, there's a thick and thin part of the albumin, there's the actual egg shell, and then there's the membrane, and there's a few other things in there that are all really part of those pieces. So what the food industry has typically done, and everybody that works in the food industry knows about yield management and knows how to, I gotta take these off so I can see my paperwork here. And the driver in any food industry is yield management, and it's no different here. We're now trying to maximize the yield out of that egg and to maximize the amount of liquid for whatever customers and how we're separating it. So the objective, one of the key objectives obviously was to recover every part of it and sell it. And there's been some discussions even here today about, you know, food waste and that kind of stuff. And I can tell you, I've worked a lot in the food industry. I haven't met any food processor on the primary side that doesn't find a way to make everything go away and sell everything that they can. So when you look at the product yields, the yolk is about 35%, the albumin is the large part, which is 53%. The shell itself, the shell membrane is only about 1%, but it has a very high value. And then there's the calcium, the actual eggshell calcium. So the next step then was to work with Bruce and his team, and for the most part, Bruce was the team, but look at the business plan objectives, the customers, which is pet food, food service, bakeries, pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, and then try to get a handle on, okay, what does the plant need to look like? And we knew it needed to be a federal operation, so we had to get federal registration, and we needed to start with the basics of what we needed to get that registration. So the products that we focused on were pasteurized liquid whole egg, pasteurized albumin, pasteurized yolk. We looked at egg standardization, and these are all things that the plant can currently do. We can do product blending for food service, depending on what the needs are of the food service. And then we do eggshell recovery, membrane, and shell calcium. So effectively I wasn't going to get into the big long, like I'll give you a mass balance and show you all the, but basically it's real simple. The eggs come in, they go into a raw cooler, they come onto the plant floor, they're loaded, and you'll see this all in the video. They're loaded, washed, inspected, broken. The liquid egg then goes into raw storage tanks. It's chilled and goes to raw storage tanks. The raw storage tanks to the blend, into the pasteurizer, into the pasteurized tanks, and out the door. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how it, and then the shells themselves come off and go to another process where the membrane and shell are separated. So the planning process itself was to really look at the customers and what their needs are. Now, in the case of Epic, their customers were, not all the customers were fully defined. Champion, we understood kind of what their needs were. but some of these other customers, and we're still sort of working it out. So we've had to make some assumptions and some decisions around what the objectives and what the plant needs to do based on what we believe the customers to be. So the next thing was to look at the plant processes, the plant production and processes. We knew it needed to be a federal plant, and I got to tell you, CFIA was really helpful and collaborated with us on, and we went to them early in the process, talked to them about the needs and the requirements and the regulations around the processing the eggs. So the process started with our discussion with CFIA about the facility we wanted to build. We then went with a full HACCP plan. The other thing is we used a 3A dairy standard. For anybody that's in the dairy industry or is familiar with it, will be familiar with the 3A standard. It's a standard for sanitation in liquid food production. So this plant is a full 3A. It's not, I wouldn't say it's 3A certified, but everything built in it is 3A. It could easily get 3A certified. We did a full mass balance and obviously a HACCP plan associated with that. The next step really was the master plan. Now, a master plan is, you're looking at everything. What might I want to be in 3 to 5 years? So it's kind of like, where do I want this thing to be in 3 to 5 years? So we needed to kind of figure out all the different things that EPIC would want. And a lot of those are, and Bruce has already alluded to them, shell pasteurization, boil and peel, IQF. These are all areas that the plant needs to have in its overall master plan. You don't need to, you plan for them, but you don't necessarily build for them. Then we move to the functional plan, which is what are we actually going to develop? What is it we're going to need in the short term to get the operation up and running? That's where the functional plan comes in, so, and the needs for startup. What do you need at startup? The second was a location. The interesting thing about liquid egg production is it's exactly like a dairy. You're doing exactly the same thing. The processes are very similar. The only difference is on the front end of the plant, rather than having a raw milk tank, you have a breaker. And, but everything downstream of it is very similar to a dairy. So we said, well, we need to go find a dairy. And so Bruce and I started talking about, well, where are the dairies in Alberta? Well, we found that, and then we started talking through Lethbridge Economic Development and a few other people, that the Alpha Dairy, the old Alpha Dairy in Lethbridge, was currently up for lease and was available. So we then approached the landlord and were able to negotiate a suitable arrangement for that facility, and it was already built. It was already a federally inspected dairy plant. Now it's a federally inspected liquid egg plant. So it's the renewal also of, quite frankly, existing assets that are in the marketplace that are available. So sometimes you need to take some of these processes that you want to do, find out what are similar, and then go find the facility that might already be in the marketplace. Because building new is not always the right answer. The next was to look at the engineering team, and we'll go that. And I say, and then I put this as, the big bucks, and we all have to figure out how to get along. So because engineering and construction are where you're spending your big capital dollars, and getting these kind of plants. I mean, what you're going to see in the video we're going to show you is it's a bright, shiny plant. Well, the type of stainless and the 3A certifications and that sort of stuff don't come cheap. So, and the diversification of production that the capabilities the plant has don't come cheap. So that's why I say it's big bucks, and we all have to get along because EPIC had targets and budget targets to meet, which we effectively met in. We gave them a range, and we pretty much met within that range. And then the commissioning and operation, and it's the, oh my God, it works. So commissioning operations is now you've built it, now you have to actually put production through it, and the steps to do that. We basically commissioned the plant in 10 days and had it basically, for the most part, at full production capacity in 10 days. So just to give you an overview, this is sort of the farm-to-table production that EPIC is working with, and this is a plan that we worked out with. So you can see that we're talking about 400,000 hens produce, and basically it's 1 egg per bird per day, 6 days a week. And that's the kind of volume you get, and with that we can get out 120,000 pounds a week of liquid egg, and then the calcium and membrane coming out the other end. All of the bulk product coming out, going to a lot of the customers, goes out in bulk totes, but we're also getting into the smaller 1 to 20 pound kind of packaging sizes, so the bag and box type of products. And now I'll turn back over to Bruce, and we'll probably show you the video. I don't know if I've got the video. Yeah, here we go.
Start it there.
We're going to kind of try and stop it at spots, so we're going to kind of do the hand waving thing when we want to stop it. So these are loading docks. I'm sure everybody's seen loading docks. So this is the old Alpha Dairy in Lethbridge, and these coolers that you're seeing here are the existing coolers that were dairy coolers when we were doing that. Oh, sorry, I got to keep my hands still. I'm not Italian either, so.
We had a plant in Airdrie that we first looked at, and it was a facility that you couldn't actually get a semi-trailer to the back door, you know, with under 10 tries. So this is a much nicer facility with, you know, we have unloading doors. We don't have to cross streams. These are eggs that we've gotten from Sparks Eggs, who've been helping us out on the initial startup of providing us with some cage-free product for Champion. And the essentially this is the raw room that they're in here, and so the eggs are brought in, they're tempered, and then placed on the belt, and they just go through a. This is actually set at a fairly low speed, but
those are vacuum loaders.
The vacuum loaders pick them up and drop them on the belt. They run through a steam and
it's a hot water wash.
Hot water wash. They are candled out the other end of that machine, and they pass through a window into the finished room. So nothing that's come from the raw room can go into that room unless it's, including staff, have been redressed and walked through the protocols required for the finishing the pasteurizing room. And the folks who shot this video really thought this was a cool piece of machine, so we've got way too much time spent on this, picking up the eggs. But it's basically just a long table with water and brushes that take those eggs through, clean off the stuff. One of the things that we're doing that's different than other breaking plants, as I mentioned, is we're processing eggshells and eggshell membrane. And you'll see where it's caught, but we still had to get the shells directly out of the room because they're thought of as garbage underneath, under sort of the CFIA traditional view is that that's garbage. And of course, it's not garbage to us, we're selling it, but still had to be carted out of the room immediately. So this is the carousel breaking.
I'll add one point is right where you see where the egg's dropping, just prior to that is a sanitation step as well. So they're washed at about 43 degrees Celsius. They come out of that, they're candled, which is they're inspected. There's lights from underneath. They're inspected to see if there's any quality issues with the eggs. And then there's a sanitizer that's put on them before that goes into the room. And these are clean room, this is clean room production. So the ventilation systems are all managed for clean room production.
The shells, as you see, get cut, split, and the egg falls into the little basket below it, and that basket has holes in it that allows the whites to flow out and holds the yolk there, and that's the way you separate the yolk from the whites. And then depending on what you're producing, it's just dumped and piped out of there into a ballast tank, which we'll show you in a moment.
I'll make an engineer out of them yet.
Exactly. The things I've learned, honestly. So this is our belt that's collecting the eggshells, and we're taking it out of the room into hoppers and then moving it into the room where we're processing the eggshells. And we just started processing the eggshells last week because we didn't have the volume of eggshells to require it. There's a ballast tank that's just holding the holes that are coming out. They pick a few shells out of there. It runs from there through a filter that captures the rest of the shell.
Mm-hmm. And then a chiller.
And a chiller, and then into a raw tank, which you'll see shortly. So that's the chiller that's just right there on the end. If you could
deposit there.
Deposit there.
So, which is the? Oh, there we go. So this is the filter. These are the filters that filter out any of the smaller shells. There's a screen on that surge tank that Bruce was just talking about, which takes out the bulk shell. If a shell gets past, it takes that out. This thing, these are out of Europe, and but they filter the small particles. The smaller particles out. This is the chiller that chills takes the product from its 40 Celsius that we heat it up to and drops it down to about probably just under 4 Celsius through this chiller. Then it's pumped to the raw tanks. Okay. Well, let's pause it there too.
Just take it a little farther, sorry.
Bump it forward a bit. Okay,
so right
stop there.
Yeah, good.
So we're getting a little ahead in the process, but this is the main brains of the facility. This is the main PLC control system. There's a chart recorder that monitors the pasteurization process, and it's a requirement of CFIA that you have a chart recorder. They haven't moved into the world of computers yet, where it's kind of paperless, but so there is still this paper. And then these are controls that basically control the pasteurization process. What you're seeing here is there's a balance tank in behind here. You can't see it very well, but it basically pumps through this heat exchanger, and then it goes through these. When you see these white tubes in the back, those are called holding tubes. We heat the product up to 63 Celsius. We hold it for 3.5 minutes, and then it comes back out. We chill it down, and it goes into the pasteurized tanks. So that's the pasteurization process, very similar to dairy. Now, egg has different holding times than dairy. Dairy is a shorter holding time because of the nature of what it is. But everything in the plant is controlled from this control panel. So all the cleaning, all the sanitation. So we do CIP systems, which are clean in place systems, all controlled from here, but they're in a separate room. This is the blender. So we can do product blending. We can do salted yolks. We can do citric yolks and almond. We can do whole egg blends. This is the blend tank. And then these two tanks here, there's two of them. There's one in behind this one, which are the two raw tanks. Each of those holds 7,500 liters of liquid egg. So currently the plant was built with one line, but what you'll see is we have two breakers. So the second line is ready to be put in once the customer demand is built, and it'll likely require. So those are the pasteurized tanks, and those are the totes that are in the holding cooler. This was done early in the process, sort of shortly after commissioning. That's why there's only a few totes in the cooler, but there's since been some increased volumes. And then are we back to the slide presentation? There we go. So this is the professional team we put together. It's made up of probably 80% Alberta companies, and most of the material and equipment, with the exception of some of the specialized equipment, is 80% Canadian supplied. So it fits into one of Alma's mandates, which is to develop the Alberta industry. And so the engineering, a lot of the the engineering was AECOM, the Stanfoss and Cybertech were the two Edmonton-based companies, both which Stanfoss does a lot of work in the dairy industry, so does Cybertech. CNA was the prime process contractor for installation, and then the other, and then Pulver Dryer is Midwest BRD. Midwest provided all the breakers and all the front end equipment, from the vacuum loaders right through to the breakers. Pulver Dryer is provided all the shell membrane technologies around processing. And I'll turn this back over to.
And the sponsors and our partners in this business have been Alma, of course, have been tremendous help. The egg farmers of Alberta have invested a great deal in this business and are integral to its good health and survival going forward. And AFSC has been a terrific partner as well. So we managed to get it up and going, and are looking forward to the continuation. But I wanted to, again, thank you for the opportunity to be here today and tell you about our plant. And when you could drop in and want to look at a visit, all I can let you do is look through some windows. They are really cool windows. And it is a neat process to see in its infancy, while it's running. So please come down and visit us.